This video is really long overdue. When we were building the van and getting it all ready, all this footage and content is from back then, from like a year ago. But finally got around to editing it. So yeah, here we are a year later, but it's all good. So what we're doing in this video is building a windowsill. First of all, we used pine, number one because it's cheap, number two because it's fairly strong and durable for the job, and it's also lightweight, which when you convert in a van, it's what you want, nice lightweight stuff. So in essence, all we're doing is bulking out the cavity from the metal of the van wall to the wall itself here, the ply. We've just filled that cavity in with wood, and it's really good, it's really useful. It took me a little while to get my head around how to do it, but it's all on the video, so go check it out. Hopefully it's helpful. Getting this template here, when we were trying to cut around the curve, we tried paper, we tried cardboard, we tried loads of different things, and actually what ended up working was a bit of dodo mat. So this is what we used up here. It's really good. It's obviously flexible, it's easily cuttable, and I think the best thing about it is that it's moldable. We started off with a big sheet and we pushed it right in to try and get the curve, and once we'd done that, it left an indentation of where we were cutting, so we were able to cut, and that gave us our moulding or our stencil, which we used. I had my dodo template. I then used it as a stencil and made a second template out of ply, which you can see here. So going forward, the things we'll need are a plank of wood, a pencil, a packet of screws, our template, an impact driver, a saw, my bad, and also a tape measure. The first thing I do is start by putting our template onto our piece of wood and measuring it so it's equal either side. Once I've done this, I then use some screws and my impact to secure it in place. I put a screw in each corner, then take my pencil and draw around the inside of the template. This is going to be our windowsill. You can see here I've got a nice clear line of where I'm going to be cutting out. I do the exact same process a little bit further down the piece of wood. Again, screwing it in position, scoring a line. Then I cut my plank of wood in half and I make 3 sections. It obviously depends on how thick your cavity is. I'm using 3 pieces of wood. Next, I get my drill and I'm using a spade bit. You can also use a Forstner bit, which is a bit more accurate, but for this, a spade bit's fine. I start off on one side, and when I can feel the blade go through to the other side, I then flip the wood. This is basically just to stop messy breakout. It's not overly irrelevant because we're going to be cutting it out anyway, but I just like to do the best job I can. Once I've done my hole, I then grab my jigsaw and get ready to cut the inside out. I'm leaving about a 3mm gap away from the pencil line, just because I don't want to cut into the bit I want. Once I'd completed all 3 bits, it was then on to routering. So I'm again putting my stencil back on each section that we've cut out. I've already got the pre-drilled holes from where the screws went in, so it makes it nice and easy to line up the stencil with what we've just cut. This is the router bit that I'm going to be using, and you can see on the bottom and on the top there's 2 wheel bearings. We're not going to focus on the bottom one, but more so the top. Whatever the bearing follows is what's going to be getting cut. So I'm going to be using our ply template as the guide, and the wheel bearing will be going across that, so then the blade will be cutting the wood underneath, just like so. You can see how smooth the wood is from the bit I've just routed. it's doing a really good job. So I repeat this process 3 times on each piece of wood. So now that we've got all 3 pieces the same internally, I'm then going to be screwing them together to bulk out the cavity. And it doesn't matter so much about the exterior, but what does matter is the interior. So as long as they're all flush and lined up, then we're on for a winner. I start with the first section, and the first thing I'm going to do is drill some pilot holes. I do a pilot hole in each corner and also on the sides in the middle. Once I've done this, I grab a second section and screw them together. As I said, it's the inside that you want to be flush, not the outside. Then I put a screw in each corner. It's important to note that we're going to be doing the same thing but on the other side, and you want to put your pilot holes in a different place to where you've just done them, so the screws don't collide within the wood. You want them to put a couple of mil difference between them so they miss each other. So here we go. Here's the last section, and I repeat the same process. Again, doing the pilot holes, but in a different section, just a couple of mil away. So now we've got one big cavity filling template. And it's actually starting to look a little bit more like a windowsill now. So the router did a pretty good job, but I'm going to sand it and make it even better, nice and smooth, and get out any defects that the router has put in there. I kindly asked a neighbour if I could use their workshop, and they've got a machine called a bobbin. Now a bobbin is really good because not only does it rotate, but it also goes up and down, so you get a really good coverage of sanding. A quick side note thought is, if you're not used to sanding, then the coarser the grit, the lower the number. The higher the number, the less coarse it is. So if you've got an 80 grit sandpaper, it'll be pretty rough, but if you have a 220, it'll be pretty smooth. Just some information for you to know. After sanding, I then went and had a look at how we were getting on. And this was the most exciting part for me because it all started to come together. And it looked really good, if I do say so myself. Once it was in position and I was happy with it, I then had to figure out how I was going to cut the wall out. This is the most simple way I could come up with it. So, my dad and I put the wall up against the windowsill. Then I screwed through the wall into the windowsill. Then we pulled the wall back down and the windowsill was in place. As you can see, it stuck to the wall. I then took my pencil and drew around the inside of the windowsill, so this is going to give me the area I was going to cut out. Again, using my jigsaw, I cut 3 mil away from my pencil mark. This is because I'm going to router it, like we did earlier, and get a nice, flush, smooth surface. Once I'd cut the wall out, I then put the wall back up for the last time. It was starting to look pretty good, but the job wasn't done yet. You can see the 3 mil I was on about earlier. Now, I want this to be flush with the windowsill, so I'm going to be using the same method as earlier. I'm using my router bit. Now, the bearing is going to be going across the windowsill, and the blade is going to be cutting the wall. so it all ends up nice and smooth.
I'm going to go over with a router and a little router bit. So the same process as we did kind of like before. Our little wheel is just going to be basically guiding us, cutting out the fly here. So here we go.
I do understand this is a little bit sketchy, especially using something that's spinning at over 300 miles an hour right next to a brand new piece of glass. It's a bit daunting and a bit stupid, but the method works. Our small windows completed and a little bit of footage of our big window being completed. All in all, it worked out really well. I was happy with the method and I'd do it again the same way. I used the exact same method for when I did our big window as well. Now, yes, as I've said, a little bit silly. However, as long as you're only taking off a small amount when routering, it's not too bad. If you're taking off 5 or 6 mil, then that can put the router blade under a lot of stress and it can snap, or the bearing could come off, or something horribly wrong. However, if you're only using a couple of mil just to tidy up the edges, you should be fine. And it's been a year since the day we fitted these, and we're still going strong. No problems. So hopefully this video has helped and it can give you some guidance. Obviously, don't take it as do it this way. Please go and do your research on how to do it different ways. But if this video can help, then we've done our job.